here. There we go. And so again, this is Toolbox Tuesday. Every other Tuesday, we take the opportunity. Normally, we have an outside vendor. Today is a special one because our outside vendor is one of our own. We tried to do this last month and we ran into some technical difficulties. We're going to pretend like that one never happened. This is the first time we're ever doing statement analysis with Justin. But I'm super excited for this one. This one was one that was requested by a lot of folks. Again, we'll record it and we'll send the link out later this afternoon like we always do with Toolbox Tuesday. But one other thing, episode 3 of the podcast drops tomorrow. So hopefully you've been enjoying those so far. Again, those are an opportunity for us to talk about you as our agents and kind of the agent community as a whole. Tomorrow's episode is focusing on why right now is the good old days for merchant sales, and so I'm excited about that one. And that's about it. I think I feel like I've stalled long enough, Justin. I'm not sure I have anything else to add. You should be able to share your screen whenever you're ready to go, and I'll turn it over to you to take it away.
All right, you're good, brother. You're good. And I know we were having some spiky internet, some in and out internet there. I hope it was you and not me. So that'll make it bad for sharing. Well, it's more technical difficulties. But can everybody hear me okay? If everybody can unmute and say if you can or can't, but can you hear me all right? John, am I okay there?
Yeah, and I will add, just for anybody that's maybe joining us for the first time.
Anybody else unmute themselves? Am I good?
Yeah, I think we're good.
Thanks, Jim. Appreciate it.
Yeah.
All right, good. Just want to make sure it was up because last time we did this, we had the same problem. So last time my cord I was using to plug in my computer wasn't apparently plugged in. I thought it was, and it just died in the middle of it all. So that was super fun. But no, I appreciate everybody being here. Like John said, this is one that's been requested quite a bit. Diving into statement analysis, talking, deeply about that. So we're gonna dive as deep into it as we can in a 1-hour session, of course. And I'll have a lot of things I'll share as we go. This is something that I enjoy doing. I'm kind of a numbers nerd like that, so I love doing this sort of stuff. But as we go through there, if you have questions, anything, please, stop me, ask for questions. John will be monitoring the chat. I've got my email, my text messages right here next to me. So if you don't want to unmute for whatever reason, feel free to pop in, that way as well. So John, I will go ahead and share my screen here. All righty. All right. Is that looking good there?
Yep, I can see it. I'm seeing presenter view.
Oh, whoops. There we go. Sorry.
There you go. Perfect. You're good to go.
All right. Sorry, guys. All right. So what we're gonna, I want to start with first, just kind of a caveat about, statement analysis in general. I don't feel that in every situation it's absolutely necessary, and I think that's something that our industry as a whole has always felt was like, hey, we've got to get the statement. We have to get the statement. It's that first step. Like when I was trained, and like many of you are that have been around for a long time, or even the newbies, it was like, hey, that's the first thing. Go get a statement. Go get a statement. Go get a statement. But as you become more in tune with really what you're working with your merchants, and you really understand what the needs are here, you don't have to get a statement every time, especially in situations where you're starting talking about, like today, we're talking about, dual pricing and cash discounting and surcharging and all those products and programs that are out there. You don't necessarily have to have a statement. You can have a really quick conversation with somebody and explain to them, what are you paying now? Let's talk about that. And they usually know that off the top of their head, of course. And you can dive into it that way. I equate a lot of times, our industry to other industries, and I say, when the guy came and sold me my cell phone plan, he didn't ask me for a copy of my other cell phone plan. When the guy came and sold me on our trash collection here at the office, he didn't ask me for a copy of my other trash collection statement. We can sell without it. It's a nice tool to have many times, especially when we're the good guys here that are, showing some of the bad actions that are happening on other people. Sometimes that's a great tool for that reason. But I just want to start with that I don't think it's always necessary. Try to avoid that trap of jumping into where I always feel like it's necessary. But once I do have the statement, now how do I dive into that? How do I really figure out like what's profit, what's cost, what's real, what's not? And that's what really we're going to talk about, today quite a bit is those 4 steps. So I've tried to take something that's fairly complex here and break it down into 4 steps for all of us to make it as easy as possible. And so this is how I mentally go through it and how I mentally teach everybody else to do it. And then we're going to jump into some actual statements and show you some real life examples. So the first things first, just a general review. Take a look at it, look it over. The most important thing is, do I have all pages? Merchants are very popular for sending you one half of it because they just scan the one side of the statement and not didn't flip it over. So make sure you have all the pages. Just kind of have a general look over it. Is it a recent statement? I don't want to be looking at something from 4 years ago. Do I have all the pages? Is it from the right merchant? I've had that happen before as well, where they got it messed up. That sort of stuff. If you're in person, it's also a great little just tidbit to look at is how do they access that statement? Did they pull it off the internet? Did they know their username and password? Was it still in a sealed envelope? Gives you some clues to how much they're really even paying attention to their statement and how you can help them understand things a little bit better. Most people are never paying attention to them because they're too complicated to read. But we'll go over these again when we go through the real world examples here. Number 2 is determining effective rate. Now, this is the most critical step 1, and many times I think that people glance over is effective rate is nothing more than taking the total fees paid, so the total amount that the merchant is paying for credit card processing. I don't care how they're doing it, but there's a total fees, taking those total amount of fees and dividing it by the total amount of money they processed. That's going to now provide you with a percentage, an effective rate. Now, that effective rate might be anywhere between 2% and 5%. But knowing that number is critical because now we're level setting the playing field. And what I mean by that is that there are, for any of you that have been around, obviously this, and for those that are new, there are so many different ways you can price an account. And when we start trying to compare, 10 cents transaction fee over here versus 4 cents over here versus 6 cents here, and maybe 85 basis points versus 20 basis points over here, and then there's a monthly fee here. There's so many different ways you can do it. I mean, you can have a merchant that says, I won't pay any transaction fees. Hey, no problem. You just charge them more over here on the discount rate, but somewhere or another, they're being charged fees to take credit card processing. So start with number 1. Let's figure out where we're starting. Determine their current effective rate. Take the total amount they're paying divided by the total amount they processed. At the end of the day, that's the total amount it costs for you to accept credit cards. Now, step 3 is find what the pass-through costs are. Now, you'll notice I call them pass-through costs, not interchange. Many people just refer to it as interchange. And as I go through this, I'll probably say interchange just out of habit. But it's important to remember that interchange technically, which is interchange is what the card brands charge for, to the card brands collect on behalf of the issuing bank to give them back for, all the rewards on that card for their debit card program. So the rates you see, the rates you pay attention to, the 5 basis points and 22 cents transaction, the 1.6 and 10, that's interchange. All of that goes back to the issuing bank to pay for those cards. The rest of but there are many other fees outside of interchange that are actually legitimate fees from the card brands, from Visa, MasterCard, Discover, and American Express. Those are also part of true costs. These are costs that as a processor, that we're all billed. It doesn't matter if you're the smallest, merchant in the country or the largest merchant in the country. Everybody has billed these pass-through costs or these costs from Visa and MasterCard, Discover, and American Express. determining what that is for that particular merchant is important. And sometimes it's easier than other places. So sometimes it's right there on the statement. You can see it, no problem. It's fully transparent, totally disclosed. We're all good, simple, easy. Sometimes you have to do a little bit of just kind of calculations and doing some assumptions. And we'll talk about that here as we dive into those as well. But find those pass-through costs now. Once we've done that, now it's a simple math. Take the current effective rate, subtract the pass-through costs, and that's how much money the processor is holding for markup, for profit. So that's our 4 real steps. That's really what we're doing. Now there's some, sub steps within those, but if we really just slow down and try to break it down to the basics as we can, those are the 4 things that we're looking to accomplish. So we're going to start with just a general review, look it over, look for anything weird, wonky. Do we have all the pages? Do we have all the right facts here? Number 2, now just determine the effective rate. Just a quick, simple, hey, here's total amount they're paying right now, divided by their total amount they processed. This is how much it's costing them right now to accept credit cards. Now look through, can we determine what their pass-through costs are? What in here is profit? What in here is pass-through costs? Do that math, make that determination there. And now, once I have my pass-through costs, take my current effective rate minus my pass-through costs, boom, I got my processor markup now. So make it quick, simple, and easy. It's not always that easy, obviously, but that's the hopes, of course. So before we jump into this, I want to talk about the next important thing. And this is where I see a lot of people get just kind of stuck up, and it's not stuck up, stuck and kind of confused about, is the concept of basis points and how important it is when you're doing statement analysis to break everything down to basis points. Remember, basis points isn't something, magical that was made up for the credit card processing industry. Anyone who's been in the mortgage industry or other, fractional percentage businesses know that, basis points is just simply a mathematical expression. It's just a way to mathematically express 1/100th%. Way easier to say, hey, 7 basis points instead of 7/100ths%, right? So it's a very simple way to do that. And that's when you're thinking about basis points, just always remember that in your mind. It's 1/100%, or another way, think of it as 100 basis points equals 1%. So what you're wanting to do as you go through here or do any sort of analysis is don't worry about, is it 7 cents a transaction? Is it 12 cents a transaction? Is it $24? Is it $80? Just do the math, convert it all to basis points. That's why we're doing the effective rate. That's so when we take 80, if we take $80 and they processed, they processed $1,000, we're taking 80 divided by $1,000, and that's the basis points now, which would be 8 basis points. That'd be the basis points now that we're assigning to that cost. It makes it way easier because at the end of the day, we all know that we can price the deal however we want to. Once we know what our costs are, we can then add on transaction fees, we can add on discount rate, we can add on monthly. It doesn't matter at that point. And we're not going to get into pricing today, how we should price the deal, but you've got that flexibility. So just break it down to the simple common denominator, lowest, easiest way to do this, and just break it all down and convert everything to basis points, which is what we're doing by doing the effective rate, concept. And to kind of give you an example of that, I made a quick example here. It shows you, the difference that can make. So you're looking at a statement sometimes, and you say, in these two scenarios here, both of these merchants are paying 5 cents. Oh, well, do I just charge them another 5 cents? Or what's that 5 cents really mean? Or to one merchant, 5 cents might be a lot. To another merchant, it might be a little. Well, and this gives you a perfect example here where you can see 5 cents on $30 average transaction size is 17 basis points. But that same 5 cents on an $80 average transaction size, not an ANG transaction size, I don't know spell, is only 6 basis points. So you see the difference in how those things can really change. I mean, you can see merchants that are, really, really, small average ticket like a coffee shop that's doing $10 to $12 average tickets, and they're paying 5-7 cents a transaction. That adds up really fast. That's a large percentage item. So it's why we just convert everything to basis points, to make sure that we're able to compare apples to apples across the board and make it as simple as possible. Okay. So any questions on any of this, guys, before I jump into, we're going to jump into some actual statements here and go through 3 or 4 of them. Any questions before we go into those next steps? All right. Well, this is where things screwed up last time, so hopefully we're good to go. So hey, look at that. All right, we're going to start with this guy. Now, we're not going to spend a lot of time on this one, and I'll zoom as much as possible. My goal in showing this one is we're not going to dive too deep into this one. This is because we got another one that does the same kind of concept. But I wanted to show this style of statement as we talk about the review of the statement. I think it's important to recognize styles of statement. There's only a handful of styles out there because most processors, 90% plus of processors and ISOs out there, simply let the processing platform, meaning TSYS, First Data, Elevon, those guys, they let them issue the statement for them. Very few processors do their own statement. So you'll very quickly start seeing styles of statements, and you'll know, oh, that's what processing platform this merchant's on. This style right here, if you've been in the industry for any time at all, you've seen it 1,000 times. This is a standard TSYS statement. So I know, even though this says code card number, I don't care. It could say one of 10,000 different names up here. It could say the ISO name, the agency name, the FSP name. It doesn't matter. But I know that this merchant is processing on the TSYS platform because I see a TSYS style statement. If you look at our statements that we get through priority payments, they look just like this. Now, not the wonky ones we get online, but the ones that actually get mailed out to the merchants look exactly like this. So they have the same style. Very very straightforward. You got your number of oh, sorry, I forgot. I can write on this now. Hold on. Figured out how to do that. John taught me. You got your you've got your volume, right here. Hold on. Whoa. All right. So you got your sorry, hold on. I thought I had it figured out. All right, so you got your, hold on. We're gonna do it a different way here. There we go. All right, so we've got our volume right here, and then if you come over here to the side over here, you're gonna have your discount, total due. There's have a base rate right here. It's going to show how much is being charged in terms of the basis points. So in this particular case, you see right here, 10 basis points being charged on this merchant. And then base PI means per item. So that would be more like transaction fees are all right here on that particular merchant. So now if we instead go down here, then you can see all the interchange is all broken down and the additional fees are all throughout here. So again, I'm not going to spend too much time on this one because we had another one that dives into the style, but I just wanted to give everybody kind of a quick heads up. This is straightforward. You see this out there. This merchant's on TSYS. This is a TSYS style merchant. That's something you can be helpful in understanding what type of equipment, what everything they're doing. So next up, we're going to go on to this one here, which this is another one. I'll start with the style of it. This is a standard First Data style. So again, anytime you see this style, I don't care what name it says up here, it says pay safe up here, could say again, one of 10,000 different names, but this is a standard first data style. It's gonna have the merchant's name up here, their dates and everything, and then it's gonna have this summary right here on here with some notes, and then dives into always this processing language. This is a standard. Anytime you see this, again, you know they're running on the first data platform, which can be helpful. So let's start with step one here, right? We're going to just take a quick look at this statement. Do we have everything we need? You know, it's one of 9 pages. It's all clean. I can read it. I got 9 pages. I always stop here. Hey, let's take a quick look at the important information, because this is where increases get hidden in here. This is where they tell them about things that are going to start charging them more. Sometimes they're pass-through costs. In this case, we see we have Star PIN Debit Network annual fee. That's a pass-through cost from the Star network. Billing month for Excel PIN Debit Network is changing. So they're going to be charging them $16. Okay, that's a pass-through. All right, nothing crazy there. I see, you know, standard stuff here. Again, I'm just having a quick look. You know, pretty standard first data statement. They always have a summary up here, and then at the back they break down the interchange back here. Pretty straightforward and clean usually to look at. So now I've kind of just had my quick look through here. I've got all the pages. I have everything I need. So now what's next is we're going to do our effective rate, right? We're going to look for our effective rate. What are they currently paying on this account? So we see right here, total fees charged is $1,162. I always start first and just kind of go down here to the back and make sure, you know, is that accurate? Is there anything missing in here that got charged extra? Usually that number is accurate, but I always just want to take a quick look. So I see 1,162 there. So I'm literally just going to take now my, 1162 right here, and I'm going to divide it by my total volume processed. Now it's important, do not take it times that, you know, this right here. Don't take it times the total amount funded. Take that divided by the total amount they processed. So if I take $1,162.82 and I divide it by 25,449.11, I'm going to get 4.60 basically, basically 4.57 is what I'm getting. Look at that, drawn with a mouse and everything. Holy cow, look at me go, John. So we're talking about an effective rate here of 4.57%, guys. I mean, if you look at it, it makes sense. You know, you think about a 1% of 25,000 is going to be about $250. You know, $250 times 4 is going to be, yeah, that seems about right. I was kind of just check my mind, like, did I do something wrong there? So that's why I see something like that, because we know typically, you know, most merchants are going to be in the 2 to 3% range. So I start seeing something like this, like, holy cow, why is there so much here? So now we start, you know, okay, we've determined the effective rate. Now step 3 is let's figure out what our true costs are here. So we come back into here. The first thing I'm going to double check whenever I'm looking at a statement is, are they giving them true interchange? Now, this, we could spend an entire session on true interchange, true pass-through. But all I want everyone to remember is one card. This is it. There's over 300 card types out there. Remember that you're carrying a debit card in your pocket. The rate that's assigned to that debit card depends on the bank it's assigned to. Depends on if you take it to, it's a different rate at a supermarket, which is different than a service station, which is different than a restaurant, which is different than a bar, which is different than online, which is different than if you take it to pay for your kids' daycare. They all have different rates assigned to them based on their industry type. So, but the one that is standard, that is straightforward, and is always going to be a sizable amount because of the type of card it is regulated debit. Anytime you're looking at a statement and you want to just say, hey, are they giving them true interchange? I could dive into, we could pull up the Visa tables and we could look at every single card type. And we used to do that back in the day and just try to, find every card type and look at every single one. But in my 15 plus years, there's been a handful of times where I've seen, if a processor is going to play games with interchange and they're going to hide fees in the interchange, they're going to do it across the board. They're not going to pick one card type and not do it over here. It's typically across the board. So I'm looking really quickly first, are they giving them true interchange? And I'm just looking for regulated debit. I see right here, this is one line. There's other ones in here because regulated debit is very common. But here's one I can look at right here. Here's our regulated debit. Regulated debit has a congressionally mandated cost of 5 basis points and 22 cents a transaction. Sometimes you will see this as 23 cents a transaction because it's based on if they're doing some fraud services, but just understand it's going to be 5 basis points and 22 cents a transaction. If you see that, now you know, okay, this is pretty much true interchange. Unless there's some other funny business going on here, which there usually is not, I'm pretty safe knowing that, okay, this is true interchange. What I'm looking at here is a pass-through statement. I'm looking at a merchant that is being charged true interchange and then fees on top of the interchange, which are up here. Okay, so now I'm going to come back to our fees charge. We know that we got true interchange. What now is being charged on top of that, right? Well, I start coming in here, I see really quickly, you see these sections are broken down by MasterCard here, and then all the fees for MasterCard. Then we get into American Express here. Then we get into Visa offline debit, Discover. I probably missed Visa up there. Yeah, Visa right here. Visa right there as well. So they're kind of broken down, but typically, other than American Express, typically Visa, MasterCard, and Discover are all priced the same. It's very rare to see them, and sometimes American Express price the same too. So really quickly, we're going to look through here. We're going to say, okay, what are they being charged on top of the interchange, right? So if we look really quickly, we'll start right here with this interchange line right here. If I wanted to get, really, really particular, I see this 226.38. I could come back here to the back and find my MasterCard section and find that they're paying 226.38 if I added up those different sections. But I've always looked at them and said, okay, it adds up if you double check it. So you can trust that number 99% of the time. But what we're trying to find out is what's the cost here, right? So the easiest way sometimes to figure out the cost is find out instead, what are they charging them on top of cost, right? Sometimes that's the easiest way to do it. Let's back calculate this. So what we see right here is qualified discount. That's the discount rate being charged to the merchant. And you can see, let me zoom this in for you guys a little more, sorry. You can see right here, it's 59 basis points. So 59 basis points on all the volume, right? Now we've got in here other item fees. We've got 4 cents for every transaction they're running. It is in there as well. We come down here, we've got other volume fees. These are one of those things that can be a pass-through. Again, it's a small amount. It's, thousands of percents. I'm not worried about that. That's typically a pass-through cost. Now we've got another down here. We get into authorizations now. Now we have another gateway fee of 10 cents a transaction here. Then we come down and now we start getting into the pass-through costs here. We have the interchange right here. We now have our license fee, our NABU fee, our kilobyte fees for clearing and authorization, and then the location fee. These are all relatively small fees when you look over here. And you can pretty well trust those small fees like that are going to be your pass-through costs, right? That's going to be what the merchant is paying from a pass-through perspective. So we can see right here, this merchant is effectively paying 59 basis points plus 14 cents a transaction, right? So we got 4 cents here and 10 cents here. So, sorry, I keep realizing. So we got the 10 cents here and we have the 4 cents here. So they're 14 cents plus 59 basis points. let's see if that's clear across the board, straight across the board. We look at our Amex, we see the same thing. We see 59 basis points. We see 4 cents. We see 10 cents. Here's another little, in here, we got another 2 cents in here on the Amex side that's being charged. Sometimes they do that. So another 2 cents for the acquirer transaction fee. So they're paying on the Amex side 59 basis points plus 16 cents a transaction, right? We get into Visa. Same thing we're going to see here. We're going to see our 59 basis points, our 10. And then, I'm sorry, where's the 4? Interesting. Oh, it's down here. Okay. Oh, it's down here. I'm sorry. Okay. So then you come down here, we're going to come all the way through and you're going to see the same thing across here. We're going to see in our 59 basis points, our 4, our 59. I mean, you're going to see it across the board, or extra 10 for the gateway, or extra 10 here for the gateway, and it's all across the board. So we can pretty much take the volume on this and say, hey, it's 59 basis points and 4 cents a transaction. 14 cents transaction being charged. Now we come down here, there's these additional items that, we call junk fees. These are where now, many processors obviously don't talk to their merchants about, but there's a lot of profitability that can be found in these things. So make sure you're always paying attention to all this down here. We have a batch header fee. Basically, every time the merchant batches out, they're paying 19 cents a transaction, or that's $5.51. They're being paid 19 cents a transaction every time they do a return. Not the 6 or the 4 cents that was up above, but 19 cents. A monthly service fee of $4.95, a PCI validation fee of $90 a month, a data protection fee of $9.95. Okay, and then the $5 for TransArmor, you could throw it in there. I do not personally, and the reason why I don't is because that's a required fee for when you're using Clover devices. So I mean, it's not fair, really. If they're going to use a Clover with us, they're going to pay the same thing. So I'm not gonna sit here and nitpick on that. So now I've kind of back calculated. Hey, what's all the plus here, right? I figured this out. So I can real quickly just take this 5.51 right here plus the 0.57, or actually I can just take this line right here. I'll just do this. It's 115.93. And I'm just going to take off the $5. And that's going to tell me that my total in the junk fees right here is 110.93. Okay? So we got our $110.93. Now, if we come back up instead, up to here, and we look at our, the easiest way now, because we know what they're all being charged, is we can come up here and we can do our math up here on this total volume, because we know from, already from looking down here, from analyzing it, that it's 59 basis points at 14 cents transaction. So if we take our entire volume here and we take 25,475.06 and we take it times 0.59% or 59 basis points, we're going to get 150 and 30 cents. Okay, so now we have 150 and 30 cents, and then we have our 14 cents transactions on this 21.36, which at first kind of things like, oh, it's only 14 cents transaction, right? Not that big a deal. 21.36 times 14 cents transaction, that comes up to 299.04. And then we had an extra 2 cents on the Amex, but that's 14 cents. We're not really that concerned about that, guys, right? So we have our junk fees from the back so now we have everything figured out what is really being charged by the processor. So we have now our 110.93 right here. We're going to add that up with our 299.04. and we're going to add that into our 150/30, and we get a grand total there of $560.27. That's how much the processor is holding in profit. Okay, so to back calculate that, right, we have that 560.27. We can take that $560.27 and we can divide that by the total amount they process, right? So we divide that by 25,475.06, and we come up with 2.2%. Okay. So that's 2.2%. So we know then, if we come back up here, where we had the 4.57, we know now that the processor markup is 2.20%, which means that the cost is 2.37%. So now we're done. We've now gone through our 4 steps. So we did our review. We determined our effective rate first by just dividing that. We kind of back calculated, came into what our true costs were at 2.37. And then we determined that there is 220 or 2.2% in available profit in this account. Now, again, we could spend a whole nother session or many of them on now what do I do with that? Do I save the merchant a bunch of money? You've got, that's where it comes down to, your relationship and your abilities, with that merchant and what you're going to do with them. But you have 220 basis points to play with here. There's quite a bit in this. Okay, does that make sense? Now, a lot of people might ask me that question of like, why? One of the questions that's going to come up, especially when we get deeper into this, is why is our cost, this cost right here, why is it so high at 2.37? Because you're going to hear me talk later on that we should expect costs to be in the 1.8 to 2.2% range. To see it outside of that is not normal. Well, if you look at this merchant, you'll notice that the average ticket size is relatively low right here, right? So we're looking at average transaction sizes that are, less than $15. When you start looking at your interchange rates and saying that you're going to charge 10 cents and 5 cents and 20 cents on some cards every time they run a card, that adds up really quickly. So when you see a merchant with a low average ticket, you should expect their cost here, this right here, to be a little higher. Okay. So I'll stop real quick again, 4 steps. We looked over the statement. We saw it was the first data. We verified that, everything was good, that we didn't have anything missing. We verified, that it was true interchange. We did our quick math, determining the current effect rate of 4.57 right here. Then we back calculated it, which is sometimes the easiest way to do it, and said, hey, cost is 2.37. We have 220 basis points to work with here. So again, we just simplified everything, brought it to basis points, and now we can take that 220 basis points and do whatever we want with it. Like, let's say, for instance, let's say this merchant said, you know what? I don't want to pay any discount rate. I only want to pay transaction fees and transaction fees only. Okay, well, we can do that. We can just convert these basis points into the applicable transaction fees and charge that whatever we wanted to. So now that we have the basis points and we know, we have the flexibility to go whatever way we want to. Combination of discount rate, transaction fee, discount rate only, transaction fee only, whatever you want to do, you now have that information and that ability to do that. All right, so I'm going to stop real quick on this one, guys. Any questions before I move on?
Yeah, I've got one. Can you hear me?
Mm-hmm.
Has First Data done away with the old where you used to see the fees charged or for actually the statement the month before? Have they done away with that?
The old bill backs.
Yeah.
I see them every once in a while, but not very often, man. Every once in a while, and that's a great point. I'm glad you brought that up. Is pay attention that you're looking at the right month. That's a great point. Like for instance, I don't know if I have it here. What month this is for? Yeah, right here. Okay, so this is for the month of September, right? What he's saying is sometimes you used to see this for the month of September, but all the details back here were actually for the prior month. And then the fees charged up here were for the prior month. And so you had to really pay attention to, am I being charged the right fees for the right month, and analyzing. You had to get sometimes 2 or 3 months worth of statements to have an accurate analysis. But I don't see that very often anymore. But great point, bring that up.
It's a pain.
Big pain, big pain.
An easy way to see if it is a bill back, go to the second day of the month on their statement.
Yep.
And if the fee coming out on the second day, and if it does not match that fee, you know it's a bill back fee because they're
Yep.
not. You know,
Steve's exactly right. You'd see here is typically with a bill back, you'd see you wouldn't see any fees here. You'd see one big fee on the second of the month, which would be for the prior month's amounts. So yeah, it's an easy way to look at it really quickly, as opposed to here where you see the month end charge clear at the end. That matches up. Yep, good point, Steve. All right. Any other questions? All right. I'll go into the next one, which is one you guys are going to love and is a much easier one. We have our friends at Heartland who make our lives a lot easier, actually. You know, one of the things, you know, I'm an old Heartlander and love the transparency of the statements, but definitely makes it easy to analyze it. So, again, we're going to start with the same concept here, right? We're going to start with you know, looking through this real quick. Do we have all the right, pages? We do. Again, we'll come back to this really quickly here. You know, there are some stuff in here we're going to talk about. But, you know, just kind of quickly look through this. I always like to look at this when I have a Heartland statement. Gives you an idea. Is this fairly consistent? And it is. This merchant's doing, pretty standard, straightforward, consistent business of over $2.5 to $3 million a month. So it's all right there. Straightforward Heartland statement. All the pages are there, so I'm good to go. Coming back to this page here again, like we talked about, these are these pages that you want to stop and glance at, because as you're having, you're doing your comparison, you're talking through with the merchant, you want to make sure that you're not missing out on any potential changes that are coming that would make your analysis even better. You can see here, this is an old thing that effective April 1st, 2021, Heartland started charging $25 a month, and then an additional fee to merchants that were not accepting enough EMV transactions. And basically what they're saying is if your EMV transactions fall below 10% on average, that they're going to charge you a fee. They're basically saying here, you're going to keep paying this fee. You're not processing enough EMV transactions, so you're going to continue paying this fee that we're charging you now. That is not, just to be very, very clear, that is not a pass-through fee. That is not a requirement. There is no requirement. There is no rule. There is nothing that says merchants have to accept EMV transactions. There is no threshold. This is all just a way for Heartland to grab more money from the merchant, which is, if they do it, they do it. But, there is a liability that is upon the merchant. They will lose chargebacks if they don't accept EMVs. But many merchants are okay with that, because the cost of updating their equipment far outweighs the liability they have from those chargebacks. So they're okay with it. But, that is something to always, kind of keep your eye out, especially when you're looking at a Heartland statement. So again, we see total fees here, and we can come back here and dive into these and double check, but they're going to be accurate. We have the 55,702. So we're going to just, hey, really quickly, what's our effective rate here? We got 55,702. 0.57 divided by our 2.720173. And we have here a total effective rate of 2.05%. Okay. So we're going to, oh, that didn't come out so good. That's right. Of 2.05%, right? Okay. So right on top of our head, we're like, man, that sounds, really low. Gosh, I don't know if there's, a lot of room in here, right? But remember, we're also talking about, super large volumes and little things to make little differences there. And we always want to, dive into that and figure it out. So what we got here again is, effective rate currently is 2.05%. So Heartland makes it really easy. And again, we want to double check that there's no funny business going on because things could change. But we're going to look first for that regulated debit card just to make sure we're not seeing any, funny business in here. And we'll see it right down here. You can see some of them. Oh, sorry, I went past it. Right here, you can see Visa debit, U.S. regulated. You can see they're usually large transactions. You can just kind of come through and look for big volume amounts, and you're going to find it. It's that 5 basis points and 22 cents transaction right there. So I'm safe on the interchange. I know, all this up here is our pass-through interchanges. We can go through them line by line. But, for sake of time, we're just going to look at that real quick. It's all there. This is all cost. Heartland makes it really easy that they just right at the end put all their fees right here at the end. It's nice. It simplifies it from a merchant standpoint, but also simplifies it from our standpoint. So you can see really quickly, you start looking at your discount rate. You got American Express, 69 basis points, Discover, MasterCard, Visa, all of them, 69 basis points. That old non-EMV assessment fee we talked about earlier on $264,000 at another 1%. Now we start getting transaction fees of 16.5 cents, 26.5 cents. So you start seeing some pretty sizable dollar amounts there, right? So really with the all of these things, the service and regulatory mandate fee right here, all of this is cost from Heartland. So we can just take this entire cost right here and divide that by the total amount processed. And that's going to give us the amount again of how much is being held by the processor. So we have 17,194. Oops, sorry, did the math wrong. 17,194.36. And we're going to take that number right there, and we're going to take it up here. We're divided by the total amount processed again, right here. So we're going to divide that by 27,173.09. And we're going to come up with the fact that there is 63 basis points of profit. .63%, right? Or 63 bips. So that means cost then is our 2.05 minus our 0.63. Our cost is 1.42%. Okay. Again, pretty straightforward, but it's one of those things where you start running through this, you look at this really quickly at the first night and say 2.05, man, there might not have much room. But you get this done and you take 63 basis points, you start talking about, you look down here, the numbers right here for you. You got over $17,000 in margin every month that's being collected by the processor above cost. So there's a lot of room in here to play with. There's a lot of room if you want to save this merchant money, whatever you want to do. There's a lot of room in here to play with. So any questions on this one real quick? All right. Again, pretty straightforward one, really straightforward. The last one I'm going to show you is more of kind of a trickery one. And if we have time, we'll come back for another one. But this is the one I wanted to show you guys to really keep your eyes peeled as you're looking at statements. At first glance, oops, I went too far there. At first glance, you look at this statement and you see, all sorts of numbers all over the place here. If I'm quickly looking at this, if I'm doing my first review, I see, 2,400 here, some transaction fees, up, oops, drawing's not working, just a second, sorry. I see some transaction fee charges here, third-party transaction fees here. Okay, it looks like there's a lot of different things. I come to this next page, and I'm like, okay, there's a lot of stuff here. I was quickly looking at it. Okay, if I was quickly looking at this, not paying a lot of attention, I'm probably quickly looking at this saying, oh, there's a lot of percentages, all through here. So that's probably interchange. Obviously, a bunch more here. Okay, there's pages and pages and pages. Like, oh, okay, this is all, probably first glance, I'm gonna look at that. But then when I really slow down and I see is they were charged $2,300, and that's kind of hard to read a little bit, but $2,359.05, right? $2,359.05. And I come down here, so I'm step one. I'm trying to do my effective rate right now. And here's our total volume that was processed right here on 179,000. I divide that by 179,578, and I'm only coming up with 1.31. 1.31%. So then that immediately makes me stop and pause and say, well, wait a minute here. That doesn't make any sense. That's like super, super low. I've never seen one that low. Well, you really stop and start going through here, you'll notice there is no interchange in here. There are processing fees here for, 64 basis points, so for a discount rate. There is a transaction fee here. There's a chargeback fee here. There's transaction fees and a processor access, fee here. We come down here. These are all, com fees, transaction fees, verification fees, settlement fees, enablement fees, authorization reverse fees. You keep going through here. We've got, our integrity fees and our verification fees and our CW off fees. Now we got some stuff in here that who God knows what this is. Some, V plus monthly fees and transaction fees. We've got our Amex participation fees. We got all this in here. This is literally a statement filled terminal monthly fees. All this stuff is this is all the stuff being charged on top of interchange. And the reason why I'm showing this one, and I've now seen 3 of these, I've not seen any of these for years and years and years, but all of a sudden in the last 6 months, we've seen 3 of these. And they're not just from Fifth Third. We've seen it from some other places as well. WorldPay is also famous for doing this. You will see where they're getting a statement that only shows the markup, and the interchange is just direct withdrawn out of their bank account. They never get a statement for it. They don't ever see it. So it's something when you see this, and you got to sometimes slow down and be like, wait a minute, 1.31, that really makes no sense. Let me dive into this. And obviously our team is here to help you anytime we can. We do these all day long for people, but it's now going back to the merchant, and obviously talking about unfair business practice here and not being, fully transparent. You have a withdrawal out of your bank account, and sometimes merchants will say, here's my bank statement, show me, and you'll go through and you'll find it. It'll be right there. It'll typically be tied to the same bank right here. That's their processor. You're going to see a withdrawal out there, or they'll find it themselves. And that will typically be the full interchange. And this is all some of the pass-through costs, but 99% of it is additional fees being charged. So I wanted to make sure I shared this one to help you guys understand, like, they're not always as straightforward as those last two I showed you. They're not always as easy as boom, all the information's right there. Sometimes you have to hunt and peck a little bit, but you know, the ability is definitely there to find that information. You just got to, you know, dig in a little deeper there. All right. Any other questions on this one or any of the other ones before well, actually, we only have about 5 minutes to go, so I should stop and slow down for any questions. John, is there any questions in the chat there at all? John, you're muted, buddy. Can I unmute you or something?
Thank you. No, I got you. So
right.
The only question I saw is someone was asking for statements like these that are a little less traditional. Are they still kind of every month, or have you seen anybody get like a semi-monthly or something like that, where it's a non-traditional time frame or interval?
Good question. I've not seen that. I've only seen them monthly. I've seen other ones also that you'll see that are, we've always referred to them as roll-up statements, and I know every processor has a different name for them, but where you'll see where a person has multiple locations. I mean, let's say it's a 10 location restaurant, and they get one statement that details the charges for each of those places. You have to be really careful and look at those, because sometimes they're getting multiple statements. They're getting one roll-up statement that just shows, you know, the transaction fee, or I'm sorry, the pass-through and the interchange. And then there's a separate statement that's mailed to the location or the franchisee that's showing all the additional fees. So anytime you see a summary like that, you want to dive deeper and try to make sure you have all that data. But I've never seen one be non-traditional time frame. They've always just been monthly that I've seen. Yeah, good question though. Any other questions, guys?
I will make a comment. Anytime I've ran across anybody that's using a bookkeeper, I always ask the owner to send me all of their statements, because a lot of times I find 4 or 5 of them where they're being charged $100 to $200 a month from each processor for the last 8 years, and he finds out that I can save him like $3,000 a month without even switching him.
I love, exactly right, man. The perfect approach. Yeah. And sometimes those bookkeepers can be great referral sources too, if you get the right one. You know, some of them are like, no, it's against my code of ethics to do this, but some of them can, you know, really be great referral sources too.
Oh yeah, oh yeah.
Hey, one other quick one I'll show you guys, as we have just a couple minutes. I'll show you real quick. I wanted to, you know, I talk too long sometimes. Is this one, and this is, you know, we don't have to dive deep into this, but this is one that is not a traditional interchange plus. You'll see here, and you're going to see these out. These are probably, you know, there's really 3 kinds of statements you're going to see most commonly, or I should say statements, pricing models you're going to see out in the wild. You're going to see, you know, cost plus, which is what we looked at the other last two, where we're able to go in there and see the exact markup, see the exact cost, see that. Then you're going to see flat rate, which is obviously what we do for, like, you know, dual pricing, cash discounting, you know, NCA, that kind of stuff. And then the third one, which is becoming less and less common, is tiered. And that's what this one is here. And it's not something you see very often, but this is a tiered statement where you can see, I don't have interchange here. Instead, like where you see this, yeah, my freaking drawing. Where you see right here, the regulated, you know, right here, it's 1.8%. So what they're doing is they're taking all the different card types, and imagine there are multiple buckets, usually 3 buckets. They're typically referred to as qualified, mid-qualified, and non-qualified. But sometimes you see different names assigned with those. Well, what they do is they take all these card types and they just assign the rate to one of those. Each bucket has its own assigned rate. So what you'll see here is rate number 1 is 1.8%. Rate number 2, which would be the mid-qualified, is 2.49%. And rate number 3, which is the non-qualified, is 3.18%. So you'll see as you look through here, all the cards are at 1.8 or that 2.1, I'm sorry, or 2.49 or 3.18. Now, if you come up here to the Amex up here, they're charging all of them. They're doing it to the Amex as well, but with their own different rates of 3.29, 3.59, and 3.99. So in this case, you've got some a little bit of deciphering to do. In addition, on this specific merchant, they actually say right back here in the back. Is it here or is it in the front? I'm sorry. No, it's in the back here. That they're going to be increasing their rates right here. It tells them each of the levels is going to go up 50 basis points. That's what you're going to see go up, and 10 cents per authorization. So that's a really important one. You start looking at that and saying, "Oh my gosh, we've got a ton of room here to I mean, even if you match their rates, you're going to save them 50 basis points, 10 cents transaction there, right?" So this is one where you have to kind of use a little bit of deciphering, and we can help with this. But if you looked at this merchant, and you looked at their total amount of fees they're being charged right here, you come, clear to the bottom. It's a total of these two, or in other words, this right here. So if I take that 5103.55 and I divide that real quick, by this number right here, I'm getting 3.61%. And that's before the 50 basis points and 10 cents a transaction bump. Now, in this case, when I look at this type of merchant, this was a B2B wholesale type merchant. I'm going to assume a little higher of a cost on the interchange side. So I'm probably going to err on the side of caution and say, hey, this merchant is going to have a pass-through cost of 2.25 to 2.35%. Just err on the side of caution because I don't have the exact number. But still, even at that, I've got a ton of room to work with on here because I don't have the data to know for sure what it is. But I can look back here and I can see a lot of commercial cards and business cards. So I know, okay, I'm gonna have a little higher of an interchange. But hell, even if I went super conservative and I said the interchange is going to be, or the pass-through is going to be 2.5%, when their current effect rate is 3.6 and about ready to go, go up by another 50, there's a lot to work with here, a lot to play with. So that's a tiered statement. You don't see them as often, but they're still out there. And again, I want to remind everybody, our team, sales@paycompass.com, we're here to help you with any of this stuff anytime as well. We'll gladly give you a second set of eyes on any of this stuff. All right. I ran a little long. Sorry, John. Any other questions out there? Awesome. All right. Well, if you do, you know how to get a hold of me, guys.
Thanks, Justin. I appreciate it. Appreciate it. Everybody joining. Have a fantastic week. And we'll see you once we hit December. Thanks, guys.
All right. Thanks, everybody.
Guys.